Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well in the week leading up to your GCSE exam and that all your other exams have gone well so far. In this video, we'll be doing a walkthrough of the Eduqas GCSE Music exam paper for 2022 to help you prepare for the one coming up this week. So, the title page. We have seen this all before, but questions 1 and 7 we already know will be on our set works. Toto Africa for question 7 and Badinerie for question 1. So we've got 8 questions in total, 2 of which we know what they are going to be on. So that can help us out as we go through. So our first question is on Badinerie. Just by looking at the score, we can tell that this is the B section of Badinerie. Why? Because it starts in F sharp minor, and we already know that the B section of Badinerie starts in F sharp minor, which is the dominant of B minor. Okay, so what I would recommend is in the 30 seconds you get to read through the questions, write what you know about this so far. This is the B section, so we'd write F sharp minor, we'd circle the accidentals. This is a C natural, doesn't typically go, so therefore we must be modulating. We have D sharps, which again are not typically in the key. So what else have we got that is of interest? Again, circle the accidentals. I would definitely recommend doing that. Okay, then we can go through and read the questions. So another thing we know about section B is that it ends in B minor and explores some other keys throughout the section. If you've memorized the keys it modulates to, that is brilliant, but it is also possible to work that out without having done that hard work beforehand. Okay, so let's read through the questions. Here we go. The first 10 notes of the melody, marked with a bracket, outline a chord. Give the name of this chord, for example, C major. Okay, let's go back. This is what it wants us to work out, the chord for. So the most crucial notes to the chord are typically on the first beat of each bar in a score. So the anacrusis features an F sharp, bar 1 features a C sharp on the first beat of the bar. So, what do we know about Bach? He commonly uses primary chords 1, 4, and 5. So what I would recommend doing is quickly writing out chords 1, 4, and 5 in F sharp minor. So for chord 1 in F sharp minor, we have F sharp, A, C sharp. Chord 4, B, D, F sharp. Chord 5, C sharp. If we're in the harmonic minor, it would be E sharp and G sharp. If we are in normal minor, it would be C sharp, E, G sharp. So either will be valid here. Okay, so we've got your chords there. Imagine they're written here. So what do we have on the first beat of each bar? We have F sharp and a C sharp. That is so far looking like it's got most in common with chord 1, which has F sharp, A, and C sharp in it. So let's try and find us an A. Here, we've got one straight away in the anacrusis. We've also got one halfway through bar 1, another A, and then just coming up into bar 2, another A. So we already know this is now, we've worked out this is chord 1, but it has told us to write out the chord as they've said in the question. So we would write F sharp minor here. B, the extract begins on the second beat of the bar. This is asking you to have memorized your keywords here. So hopefully you have done that. It starts on the second beat of the bar, therefore this is an anacrusis. You can also get the marks for pickup or upbeat, but that is an anacrusis. Okay, state the name of the compositional device which occurs between bars 12 beat 2 and 16 beat 1 in the cello part. I would very much recommend that you highlight the keywords here in the cello part. The amount of times I've seen that mistake be made, we are looking specifically in that part. Okay, compositional devices. Let's think about which compositional devices we know. Repetition, sequence, imitation, and I'm sure there are many others, but those are just some examples. So now that we've got some options, it makes it a little bit easier for us to work out what the compositional device it could be. So let's have a look. This is the cello part, the bass at the bottom. What does this look like? So we have what looks a bit like motif X, but just developed slightly. It's the same thing, it just gets slightly higher. So what is that called? That is called a sequence. So we can write down sequence for compositional device. Okay, one on perfect cadences, which I know is not the favourite question, but it can be quite easy to do. Identify the locations of perfect cadences heard in the extract in the following keys. Give bar and beat numbers. For example, 13 beat 2 to 14 beat 1. Great. So we've got D major and B minor. D major, what we need to do to help us with this question is to work out chords 5 to 1, as that makes a perfect cadence, in these two chords. So for D major, chord 5 would be A, C sharp, E, chord 1, D, F sharp, A. For B minor, F sharp, A, C sharp, or F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, depending on which minor, B, D, F sharp for chord 1. Okay, so let's go through and work out which one is which. Let's start with D major. We are looking for chord 5 and chord 1. So remember, as Drake says, we always start from the bottom. So we need to find an A, C sharp, and an E as our chords. We start from the bottom and make our way to the top. Okay, so looking for these perfect cadences, let's start off in D major. So first of all, we need to find where the key of D major is in this score. We know the first couple of bars is F sharp minor. So let's have a look here. Okay. So whenever we don't have the accidental of the raised seventh for F sharp minor, that's when we know that we have gone into the relative major of D major. So let's have a look. There are no accidentals in this bar, but the bottom note is E. We don't want E, we want it to be A, C sharp, E as a total chord. We have a B in the viola part. Bar 4 is out. Let's move on to the next one. We've got C sharp. Okay, this could be in first inversion of D major. We've also got, let's count here, C, D, E, F, G, A. Okay, this is good. E, G, E. Right, that's chord 5. Does it go to D major? Nope, because it starts on an E. There is no E in a D major chord. Let's go quickly to bar 6. That's a G sharp. Not in our chord of G major, so it can't possibly be in this bar. Okay, we have a G sharp. Again, actually, sorry, not a G sharp, that is a G. Not in our chords that we need for our perfect cadence in D major, so that is gone. Let's look at beat 2. Remember to always start from the bottom. This is an A. Okay, looking good. C in the middle, D, E, F, G, A. Again, that's good. 2 A's, that's a C sharp, that's an E, that's a C sharp. Great, so this is a chord 5. But does it go to chord 1, which is D, F sharp, A? Let's look in bar 8, beat 1, D. This would be C, B, and then that would be A. So that's D, A, D, F sharp, F sharp. Perfect. So we have found a perfect cadence in D major from 7 beat 2. Don't forget to put in your beat numbers to 8 beat 1. Right, let's look for B minor. The perfect cadence is there. So if we know that this section is in D major, we know that the B minor perfect cadence is unlikely to be in this extract of the score. So let's move on. Let's look at the next page. Okay, if it was B minor, we know we'd need to have a raised seventh. So we know we'd need to have an A sharp somewhere. I see an A sharp in bar 14, bar 2, beat 2. So we know we're in B minor round about there. Okay, so let's have a look at our perfect cadence here. I have noticed that I'm doing way too much work here. What do we know about section B already? It ends in B minor. So let's have a look. Is there a double bar line at the end? There is. We know this ends in B minor. So, usually a section ends on a perfect cadence. Let's have a check that this is the perfect cadence in B minor. We'd need it to be F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, to B, D, F sharp. If this is correct, then we have finished the question. So let's have a look. F sharp, looking good so far. C, D, E, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. This is a chord 5. If this is B, D, F sharp, we're in luck. B, D, D, B, D, B, 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 C, D, B, B, B. Okay, right, so we don't have our F sharp, but that's not to say this isn't a B minor chord. We've got B at the bottom, that is the root note of the chord, so we can definitely count this as a chord 1. So we could write for the perfect cadence in B minor, 23, beat 2 to 24, beat 1. Okay, so that question takes a little bit longer than the others. However, it is great to get those marks in here, especially if it's something that you can work out quite quickly. Your knowledge of the piece is strong. So at the end, you know that there's a B minor, it goes back into B minor. Therefore, that perfect cadence will likely be there. So that can help us out there. Let's go for E. Give a bar number during the extract where one example of the following musical features occurs. So we need to look for an appoggiatura. Let's have a look. Bar 17. The example of an appoggiatura, bar 20, but you would need to specify in which part that is. And bar 24. Great. So then a crotchet rest. Let's have a look. Crotchet rest. Where do we see that? We see 1 in bar 16, beat 2. Chord of C major. We can see that, remember starting from the bottom, we would need a C natural in there. Where do we see a C natural? Here. Okay, so bar 19, we can see a C major chord. Let's have a check here. That's a C natural. That's an E. That is C, B, A, G. C major. From the bottom here is E as well. So that would be C major first inversion. But they just asked us for the bar. So, bar 19. Describe the musical features of the cello part heard during the extract. There are 3 marks. That means we need to make 3 points. Even if you're stuck, make sure you make 3 because you never know if it's going to be included. So, heard during the extract. Let's have a look. Of course, you would hear the extract as well, but we can also have a look at the score. Right, so we could say it's got, let's think about direction of the melody, let's think about range, let's think about intervals, patterns, so things like sequence, imitation. So let's have a look. So we could say there is quite a wide range between the lowest note in the cello part, which we could say, without spending too much time on it, is around here and here, but then look at the wide range between that. So I'm going to put as one of my points, wide range. I'm also going to put use of broken chords or arpeggio-like figures. Here, 1, 2, 3. This is an arpeggio style. Excellent. So another one I am going to put, other than wide range, let's think about intervals now. We've got lots of octave leaps and some disjunct melodies here. And that should be more than enough points to get us through our 3 marks. G, everybody should be able to get this. This is J.S. Bach or Johann Sebastian Bach. When it says full name, it wants that middle name as well. So that is Johann Sebastian. Okay, let's move on to question 2. This is an unheard piece from Musical Forms and Devices. the same area of study as Badinerie. I unfortunately can't play the extract due to copyright reasons, so I will just explain some exam techniques and some tips that you can do going through this. Okay, so for this one, I would definitely recommend placing a tick in the box each time you hear the extract, as you will be hearing 2 extracts, so that can help you and help you not get confused here. Great. So you now have 30 seconds to read the questions. I would recommend in this time you go through and highlight the keywords in the questions. Okay, so let's move on. During section 1, the violin plays 2 notes at the same time. So they are asking you to identify the interval between the 2 notes at the same time. Thirds and fifths are likely to sound consonant and quite pretty. Sixths and sevenths are way more likely to sound a bit more dissonant. So you can use that to help you there. State the name of an ornament played by the flute. So what do we know about ornaments? There are poggiaturas, cacciaturas, or acciacaturas, however you'd like to pronounce it. There are trills, there are mordants, upper, lower mordants. Those are all on your keyword sheet there, so I definitely recommend having a look at that. So that is what we could do for question B, Then tick the correct statement. Is it the same, similar to, or different? That makes sense, that question. Describe the new melody played by the solo violin during section 4. So just keep track of the sections that you hear. So it's going to be towards the end of the extract. Describe the new melody. When we're describing melody, I'd like to think about drips. Drips standing for direction, range, intervals, patterns. The S would typically stand for setting, but as we don't have any words in this piece, we won't include setting here. We could also thinking of S, we could think about sonority, the way that it's played, any performance techniques used while playing the melody. We could also think about rhythms used in this new melody. Lots of things to think about here. There are 2 marks, so make sure you include at least 2 points. Underline the tonality of the extract. So again, think major, happy, minor, sad, pentatonic. Does it use mainly 5 notes? And does it use those 5 notes of the pentatonic scale? Time signature of the extract. So for this one, take notice of where the emphasis is placed in terms of the beats. Where does the downbeat sound like it is? Is it on beat 1? Is it on beat 2? That frames which time signature this is. So if you hear 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, that is going to be a 2/4 time signature. If it sounds a bit more waltz-like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that is going to be 3/4, and so on. Extract 2, discuss the use of texture in this extract. Give locations, for example, at the beginning, during the middle, at the end to support your comments. 3 marks. So we have, at the beginning, describe the texture at the beginning. We can see here, this is in extract 2. So at the beginning, is the texture thin, thick, homophonic, polyphonic? In the middle, does it change? How does it change? Does it become thicker? Does it become fugal, canonic? Does it use imitation? At the end, what changes? How is it different to before? And then underline the period in which this piece was composed. Let's think about the features of each of these eras briefly. Baroque uses frequent ornamentation typically, use of tonic dominant movement, also typically includes a basso continuo in the Baroque era. Classical uses scalic figures, balanced phrases. Romantic, if we move on to Romantic, a bit more chromaticism, wider range of the instruments used. Lots more features, of course, can go into each one. Okay, let's move on to question 3. We've got lyrics here. In the 30 seconds to read the questions, you can go through again, highlight them, highlight the key words. Okay, tick the rhythm heard in the accompaniment during verse 1. The way to go about this is, what are the differences between each rhythms that you see? The first one has a crotchet and then a rest. The second one has 2 crotchets and a rest. The third one has 3 crotchets and a rest. So, if you hear a note being played and then a quaver rest, that's going to be your first one. The way to think about this is the differences between each one. Okay, at the end of verse 1, the lead singers demonstrate an accompanied vocal improvisation. State the name of this performance technique. Again, revise your performance techniques there. I will skip to E. Describe 2 musical features of the double bass part heard during verse 2. So let's think about range of the double bass part. Let's think about direction. Is it ascending? Is it descending? Does it do a mixture of the two? Is it typically conjunct, disjunct? Does it use improvisation? Is it a walking bass part? What other features can we think of that we could relate to a double bass? So when it says musical features, that is asking you to think about your musical elements, dynamics, rhythm, articulation. Describe 3 features of the music sung by the backing singers during verse 2. So are they singing in harmony with the lead singer? And what is the texture they are singing in? Are they singing in unison? Are they singing in call and response? Lots of ideas that you can put in there. Underline the cadence heard at the end of verse 2 on the word good night. Interrupted is going to sound very interrupted. It's going to sound a bit like it doesn't fit. That's typically chord 5 to chord 6. Imperfect is going to sound unfinished, like there should be something else that happens after that cadence. Perfect sounds finished. Plagal sounds finished as well. However, plagal uses chords 4 to 1. So it's a little bit less steady than a perfect cadence, which it uses the chords 5 to 1. Okay, let's move on to question. Oh, there's more of question 3. Give the name of the woodwind instrument which performs a solo break at the end of the extract. So make sure you know your woodwind. That's your clarinets, your oboes, cor anglais. Percussion instrument which performs throughout the extract. So percussion, that could be pitched or unpitched percussion. So just make sure you know the difference between those families of instruments and the instruments that are included within those families. Right, let's move on to the next question. This is dictation, which I know is scary. But don't forget there are other questions for you to answer in the dictation question. So try not to freak out about getting the pitches right as much as allowing you to forget about the other questions. That's not what we want. So, time signature. We can see here, just by looking at the score, there are 2 beats in a bar, 2 crotchet beats. So we can already say that is 2/4. That question was BI. Okay, underline the instrument on which this piece is played. So make sure you are aware of the differences between the sonority of different instruments. The tempo of the extract changes in bar 6. Underline the word which best describes this change. Accelerando just means speeding up. Moderato, moderate tempo. Ritardando means slowing down. Vivace is very fast. The second and the third lines of this piece are in G major. Identify the chord that accompanies each of the notes marked with an asterisk. Underline your choices in the table below. So bar 8. Let's look at bar 8 here. What notes have we got? Okay, so for it to be chord 1 in G major, it would need to have G, B, and D. We've got D, and E, and F sharp. Could be, there's one of the 3. But they have asked us to underline the chord that accompanies each of the notes marked with an asterisk. So let's look at the asterisk. That's D. Chord 1 has a D in it. Chord 4, let's have a look. Chord 4 has C, E, G in G major, so it's not going to be that. Chord 5, 7 would be D, F sharp, A. So it could be 5, 7 or 1. Here we have gone to B. Right, so let's have a look then. B, is that in chord 1, G, B, D? Yes. Is that in chord 4? No. Is that in chord 5? No, so it's going to be 1. Okay, so overall, I don't think they would do chord 1 followed by chord 1. Let's think about it as a cadence. So I would say 5, 7, 2, 1. Complete the missing pitches of the melody when you're doing dictation. I would recommend using the dot and dash approach, but for here we would only need to use the dashes because they have asked us for pitch only. So on the first listen of the piece, go through and use dashes to tell you if the pitch is ascending or descending. That way you don't have to think about it on the second playing or the third playing. So let's say we have la la la. That is an ascending scalic pattern. So for our dashes we would draw a dash, la, then another dash slightly higher to reflect the fact that the pitch is getting higher, la, and then another one, la. Then say for the next bar we're going back down. La 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 la. I would draw dashes that are slightly lower down. La la. Then you can input the pitches later. Think about repetition. Have you heard this before? Think about intervals. What are the intervals between the notes? Are they next door to each other? Is there a leap? And is it a sequence? Does it just repeat something that has happened before but sequenced? Okay, this piece begins in the relative minor, so let's have a look at the key signature here. Give the name of the relative minor of G major. So remember, to work out the relative minor, we go from the major and we go down 3. So G, F sharp, E. So that would be E minor. Underline the shortest note value found in this piece. Okay. Here, this is looking like it is our shortest note value. That is a semiquaver. So none of these, that is a semiquaver. So some of these questions you can do without going through and listening to the piece. So some of these questions you could answer potentially in your 30-second pause between each playing, or in the time you get to read the questions. Okay, let's move on to question 5. We're now on area of study film music. Underline the tempo, so adagio is going to be a bit slower than walking pace, andante is going to be walking pace, and allegro a little bit faster. Okay, so in the table below, tick 3 musical features heard during the verse. The main tip I could give is if you haven't heard of the musical feature, don't tick it. Always go with what you know. Melisma is to do with word setting. On the beat, it's to do with rhythm. Legato is the opposite of staccato. So if it's sounding very fluid and joined together, that is going to be legato. Okay, in the table below, 3 musical features are heard during the chorus. There's blue note, canon, rubato, sforzando, syncopation, and walking bass. So just make sure you know your musical features. So, James Bond is a fictional spy, and a Bond film is characterised by romance, suspense, action, and adventure. So this is asking you to discuss features of the music that make it suitable for James Bond film. Give locations in the verse, in the chorus, in the instrumental to support your comments. Make sure you really read that second point there. It's asking you to give locations. Therefore, in your answer, you need to provide that in order to get the mark. Okay, so James Bond film, they've already told us it's characterised by romance, suspense, action, and adventure. So what musical elements can link to those things? Question 6 then, moving on. This is asking us to write our 10-mark question that we've been preparing for based on the musical elements and how they are used to create the mood of action and excitement. However, there is one more question before that asks you to identify 1 tuned and 1 untuned percussion music instrument heard in the extract. So make sure before you start on your 10-mark question that you get question A complete. We don't want to miss out on those marks. The extract accompanies a chase scene. Explain how the music portrays the action and excitement of a chase scene. You should use musical vocabulary in your answer. Okay, so for this one, we have been through how to write a 10-mark question successfully. So I'm just going to go through and give you some general tips here on ways that you can make sure that this is structured effectively and how you can make sure it answers the question. So definitely take the time it gives you to plan. When you're planning, on your first listen, write out your Dr. Cat Smith or Mad T-shirt, whichever musical element system you use. Then notice what is happening for each of these musical elements. So dynamics, is it loud at the beginning? Does it change during the middle? This is going to be your time to get down all the information about this piece that you can in the first playing. Okay, then link that to action and excitement. What other words can you think of that describe action and excitement so that your 10-mark question doesn't get a bit repetitive? Then make sure you have given a point and link that back to the question. The way I think about it is that if you give a musical point, for example, this piece is allegro throughout, but you don't link that back to the question, that point is then invalid to me as a marker. Okay, so make sure the key points here for the 10-mark question is your planning, that you have referred to the musical elements. I would recommend using at least 7 musical element points and then linking them back to the question, just to make sure that you have answered this as effectively as possible. Okay, question 7, this is Africa. So your set work, all of these, therefore, you will hopefully know from your revision. Nothing much to say on this one. There's no score to analyse. Just make sure you're aware of where we are in the song. It's verse 2 and chorus 2. When you're describing the melody, make sure to only refer to the melody rather than dynamics used in the melody here. So melody, let's go back to drips, direction, range, intervals, patterns, setting. Okay, and then underline the year in which this song was released, not when it was written, when it was released. So read that very, very carefully. The final question, question 8, this will be An Everlasting Love by Natalie Cole. Okay, any questions that we have here? Underline the type of rhythm used. We know that Charl is used in Bhangra, so we can get rid of that straight away. This is a soul song. So Charl is unlikely to be used in a piece of soul music. Driving, typically used in rock, but could be used in any style of popular music anyway. Swing has that do, be do, be do, be do rhythm. And rock, very similar to driving. A rock rhythm is that 4 to the floor beat. Describe 3 musical features of the piano part. Make sure you're reading that question very, very clearly, the piano part only. Chord pattern. You can almost ignore the specific chords they've written and try and think, is it tonic dominant movement? So we can assume the key is B flat major because that's used in all of them. Does it go to the dominant of B flat, which would be F? Does it move slightly less, the range of about a fourth, to B flat, E flat? Or does it go a bit higher to G minor? This is a very difficult question. So what I would recommend doing is listening out for the distance between the first and the second chords. Then, of course, the first 2 options are the same. So then notice the difference between the second and the third chords. How far away do they sound from each other? My main recommendation for listening out for this would be to listen to the bass line. The bass can tell you a lot. Describe the music played by the trumpets during verse 2. So again, make sure you read the question and describe the trumpets. One of the following statements about the end of the extract is true. Underline that end of the extract. We want to make sure that we have really taken notice of where it has asked us to look at. Otherwise, we're losing a mark for nothing. Okay, so that is the paper.